So this right here is our deer feeder. We're setting up a brush blind today so we can start bow hunting out of this. It's only about 20 yards away, but that's as far as I can get it without getting in the trail where the deer come from. They usually come from that gap there in the fence or up this Sendero, because there's another feeder out that way about 150 yards. I couldn't use this place because as soon as I walked around there, there were loads of deer dropping in tracks. This is our little brush blind. The real convenient thing is that this place was just cleared about a year and a half ago. So we got a whole bunch of these brush piles that are kind of set right by the Senderos. So all I really had to do was put a little more of a backing on there. What a lot of people don't realize is you have to not only put stuff in the front, but also things in the back to kind of cover up your outline. Because inevitably you're gonna have to shoot over the front and need something behind you to keep your outline broken up. So this is our next feeder we're gonna be putting a brush blind by. As you can see right there is the deer blind I use for rifle season, about 110 or so yards away. I actually came out here in the middle of the week and built this brush blind right here, kind of like the other one. It's got a brush pile in front and I just added some back to it. But then I got on my Hunt Stand app and looked at the wind and realized that about 7 days a week, the wind blows right to the feeder. So we're gonna be turning this brush pile right here into the brush blind for this one. I'll show you the bow towards the end of the video. As you can see, we got a little bit of company. This is a cattle pasture where we run some of our herd. So we're gonna have to watch out when we shoot and make sure they're not around, which is kind of difficult because they like corn, but we'll see if we can't make it happen. As you can hopefully see, this is what we started out with. We're just gonna add a little hook to the end and leave about a foot or so right there to come in from behind. And then we'll have our stool and shooting sticks right here and use the crossbow to go right over there to the deer feeder. Most of the deer hang out towards the back right here because that's where the brush is the thickest. It's the furthest from the road. And then they usually move up to the front in the morning to go drink because we got a couple ponds up there. And we kind of stop them on the way with deer corn. So after about 15 minutes of work, this is what we got now. I kind of cheated and brought a pretty good sized tree over first. That way I had something to lean all the rest of it on. So we can come around through in here. You got a good shot of the feeder right there and plenty of coverage throughout the back to break up our outline, and just in case another deer decides it's gonna show up for some weird reason, we'll be all right. So we're gonna go ahead and set up a trail camera on this feeder. We got the cheapo, disgusting Tractor Supply trail camera. I'm gonna stick it on this tree right here, kind of low, and see if we can get a wide angle because it's about as close as we can get to the feeder. See if we can see what we can't when we're not here. So this is the blind for rifle season. We got a couple feeders to put around it. It's basically just a plywood box, a bunch of scraps, some 1x6s on a few of the corners where we had some to kind of seal up the cracks a little bit. Some leftover brown paint and green paint. Put a little base under it. This actually used to not be there. It used to only have a few little nubs just to keep it from off the ground so it wouldn't rot. This is gonna be the first time I opened it since the end of last deer season, so I expect wasps, scorpions, and everything else you can imagine. So we're gonna get it cleaned out ahead of time. That way we don't have to worry about all the stink from the wasp spray scaring off the deer. Something I used to do a lot was get those flea and roach bombs for your house. Go ahead and set the whole package, which is about 4, in this little 4x6 box. And that'll kill just about anything, because that should be enough for an entire house. As you can see, we got some carpet on the ground to help dampen some of the sound, because as you can imagine, plywood gets pretty loud. Put some feed bags in some of the corners to help grab some more sound. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Got our nice window set up. You got 2 latches to keep it from making noise in the wind. So you can close one if it gets cold. Then you pull your string up here, which goes to a bolt outside. And you can lift your window, tie it up to that little hook right there, and drop it back down in the afternoon. Now something I recommend is either attaching your screws high on the window so it doesn't hit them like this, or putting your eye on the window and these on the blind so that they are out of the way, because if not, you'll fight with them all the time trying to get them to stay shut like this. But it's a pretty good setup. Stays not too terribly cold when it's cold, when it ever gets cold in South Texas. But that's what we got. So this is the last feeder we're going to be putting a brush blind by. As you can see, we are not fortunate enough to have a pile around. So we're going to end up using this thicker bushes right here. See if I can't trim out some behind it. Use that to make a back for it and call it good. So here's the thick bush I was talking about earlier. Turns out it's not so thick. It's more what was behind it over here. But we can't really get a clear shot from there. So we're going to, I guess, cut a little notch out here. Build up the back some. And see if we can't make this work. It's about 35 yards from the feeder, which is plenty close for a crossbow. I'll show you all the crossbow, the shooting sticks, and the stool at the end of the video that I'm going to end up using. I'm actually going to just take the stool with me to each place because I'm not going to be able to have 3. But this will work fine. I actually just made the executive decision to go ahead and wait on this. I'm actually going to sit in the blind probably this afternoon and tomorrow morning, see what comes out of what feeders, do some scouting, and then I'll see if I'm going to build one here. Because it seems kind of useless to waste my time until I know what's coming out. So we'll set up a game camera here, probably on either this tree or that one, and see what comes out before we build another brush blind. So after messing around with this tree for about 15 minutes and not being able to get anything out of it because of all the weird angles the branches come off at, I decided I'd move over to this one down here. Then I saw the yucca and I thought I'd mention that down here in South Texas, you don't want to mess around with yuccas too much unless you got a cab or something, because underneath them leaves is a real good spot for wasps. But then I noticed all this down here. Like, we got some critters coming around. So I went ahead and turned the trail camera around. I figured if I'm going to be doing scouting anyway, I'll see what I can see here. See what nocturnal things come out of these holes over here. I imagine it's armadillos or something, because the dirt's still pretty rough. If it were snakes, you'd usually see a lot smaller grains of dirt because they don't really dig out too often. They kind of just slither, as you can imagine. So before I left the field today, I thought I'd show you what we're working with. We have a Viper Rattler. That's crossbow we're using. I can't exactly remember when I got this thing, but it was a long time ago. As you can see, it's got pins and a sight in the back. We actually have another one that's got a red dot sight, but the cap on it's real messed up, so you can't really count on the battery always making contact and working, and that isn't gonna work. So we got some crossbow bolts here. We're using some Rage broadheads, some expanding ones. There we go. And got a couple of those in the quiver. And then these are the shooting sticks I was going to use. We have some Allen shooting sticks. They're extendable. They don't go up too high, but our stool's pretty short, so we're going to be all right. And that's what we're working with. That bottom brass pin is sighted in for 40 yards, and the top one isn't really sighted in, but I plan on lowering it some because one of the shots we're going to end up being able to take is only about 20. So we're going to need it to be a little higher, that way we don't miss. So while I was out here messing with all the deer stuff, I found part of the herd. As you can see, we run mostly longhorns down here in the brush country, but we got a few good bulls. The guy we bought this Charlet from, which is the one on the left, called him Sundance, and there's an old cowboy movie called Sundance and Bush Cassidy. Great movie, I'll watch it sometime. So I went ahead and named this other Beefmaster Butch, because they hang out pretty much together and they actually get along pretty well, which is something pretty rare in bulls. But that's what I heard, or part of it anyway. So these are the tanks I was talking about earlier. There's 2 of them up here. And I was actually kind of curious if anybody knows anything about this. I live in South Texas in the brush country, and we have a lot of tanks that are like this. And most of them actually have a break in this middle dam part, and one will be deeper than the other. so that when it rains, they both fill up, but it ends up flowing to another one. And I was wondering if anybody knew why that was or how exactly that works. As you can see, the water on this one's actually about probably 3 or 4 foot lower than the water in this one. But yeah, there's a couple in here. The cows usually come and drink out of these. And there's been some deer movement in the mornings out of here when we've been shredding and stuff, getting ready to plant for the winter. Some oats and these Senderas. But just thought I'd show y'all that and see y'all can get a better lay of the land. I might actually do a screen recording of that Hunt Stand app and show you what exactly we got to work with out here.